What does losing 10 hit points actually look like in your game's world? Is it a shallow cut across the arm? A bruised rib from a hammer blow? Or is it your hero still standing there perfectly fine until, suddenly, they're at zero and drop? Hey, I'm Bruce, and on this channel we dig into tabletop RPGs, old school D&D, Hero Quest, Warhammer, and my own game, Echoes of the End. Not just to talk rules, but to explore how to make your games grittier, more immersive, and more fun. For most tables, losing hit points is nothing more than ticking a number down on a sheet. No limp, no blood, no sweat in the eyes, just math. And that's fine if all you want is a quick way to measure survival. But when damage is invisible, combat becomes abstract. It loses weight. I'm not saying hit points are bad. I'm saying they're boring by themselves. Today, we're going to look at a far more interesting way to track what happens when your characters get hurt. To understand why hit points feel the way they do, you have to know where they came from. Hit points weren't born in a fantasy tavern or a dungeon corridor. They came from wargame. Think naval battles on a tabletop, not sword fights in a castle hall. In those games, a ship could take a certain number of hits before sinking. Each hit was just a chunk off the total. No need to track individual broken mats or flooding compartments. When early Dungeons and Dragons was created, that idea carried over. Your ship was now your fighter, your wizard, or cleric. Hit points represented an abstract pool of stamina, luck, and the ability to avoid lethal blows, not literal physical health. The problem is, when you translate a system made for ships into a game about people, something gets lost. Players expect wounds, scars, visible consequences, but the system still works like it's tracking the hull integrity of a battleship. Fine one moment, sinking the next. That's why hit points feel weird. They weren't built to show the messy, gritty details of injury. They were built to keep score in a fight. Here's where the abstraction of hit points really starts to hurt the game, pun intended. When you lose hit points, the rules don't say how you're hurt. Was it a sword slash? A sprained ankle from dodging? Just fatigue setting in? Without that detail, the game quietly trains players to think damage is invisible until the last second. That's why you see characters take blow after blow, arrows sticking out of them like a porcupine, and still swinging a sword like there's nothing wrong, right up until they hit zero. Then suddenly they're out cold or dead. It makes combat feel less like a story and more like watching 2 health bars drain in a video game. And sure, that works for quick mechanical play, but it's flat. When there's no visible toll, the tension isn't the fight itself. It's in a race to see whose math runs out first. The problem is, math doesn't bleed. The map doesn't limp back to the tavern with a torn cloak and a half-broken shield. And that means every fight risks feeling exactly the same. Every point of damage you take is a missed opportunity for storytelling. Think about it. A fight scene in a movie isn't just a slow drain on a character's invisible health bar. Every hit changes the way they move. Every wound shifts the stakes. That gash on the arm means they can't lift their shield as high. That cracked rib forces short, shallow breaths. A near miss still slices through the cloak, making them nervous about the next swing. But in most D&D style games, none of that is baked in. The wizard at 2 hit points is still casting spells with a steady hand, and the fighter at half health still swings with perfect accuracy. There's no limp, no gritted teeth, no flinch when someone comes in for another strike. This robs you of drama. A fight should evolve as it happens. The enemy presses an advantage. The rogue starts looking for an exit. The barbarian's swing gets more desperate. Without visible consequences, you miss those moments entirely. It's not just about realism, though. It's about giving players something to react to that's more than you're down 10 hit points. Because that's not a story, that's book. If hit points are the simplest way to track damage, what else is out there? Well, plenty. And the moment you start exploring alternatives, you realize how much more interesting combat can feel. One of the most popular replacements is the wound track. Instead of a single pool of points, you track specific injuries. A deep cut to the arm, a twisted knee, broken jaw. Each has its own penalty and flavor. This makes damage feel tangible. Players can see the toll in fiction, not just on the sheet. Then there's shock or morale systems. Here, damage doesn't just wear down the body. Suddenly, the fight is about keeping your nerve as much about keeping your footing. You can also lean into fatigue or stamina pulls. Every action, not just damage, drains you. Sprinting, blocking, heavy swings, they all take a toll. Combat becomes about managing resources in real time, not just swinging until the other side drops. Some games use hybrid systems. You might still have hit points, but when you cross certain thresholds, you roll on an injury table or take a penalty to actions. That way, you keep the simplicity of hit points, but layer in invisible consequences. The beauty of these models is that they make every point of damage feel different. A sword slash doesn't look like a fall from a horse, and neither looks like frostbite. You start telling the story of the wound, not just the math. Now maybe you like the simplicity of hit points, but you still want some grit. That's where hybrid systems shine. The idea is simple. Keep hit points as your base, but add moments where the fiction changes because of damage. For example, when a character loses 25, 50, or even 75% of their hit points, you roll on an injury table. Maybe they sprain an ankle or drop their weapon or suffer a concussion. Another method is to introduce damage thresholds. If you take more than X points in a single blow, it causes a lingering effect. Maybe a cracked shield arm or a bleeding wound, blurred vision. These effects don't replace hit points, but they make combat feel more alive. You can also assign descriptive prompts at certain hit point losses. Describe how that hit changes your states, or what scar will this leave. With hybrids, you get the bookkeeping ease of hit points and the immersion of wound-based play, without rewriting your entire combat system. With standard hit points, you can lose half your pull and still fight like there's nothing wrong. But with wounds, fatigue, and shock rules, the moment you take a hit, something changes. You limp, you bleed, your shield arm trembles. That makes every blow feel dangerous, even if you're technically still far from death. This changes player behavior too. When they knows one bad hit could cripple their movement, they think twice about charging in. When the fighter's sword arm is numb, suddenly positioning and tactics matter more than raw damage output. It's not just about realism, it's about creating urgency. Players can see the tide of battle turning, and they have to adapt fast. That's what makes a fight feel like survival, not just a math race. And when they walk away from the table with scars, limps, and broken gear, those wounds become proof they were there and they survived. Hit points have been around for decades because they work. They're simple, fast, and easy to understand. But simple doesn't always mean satisfying. And if you've ever felt like your combats blur together, this might be why. When damage is just a number ticking down, you lose those cinematic moments where the hero's blade shakes from exhaustion, or the wizard's voice cracks mid-incantation. You miss the thrill of a desperate fight where every injury changes the battlefield. You don't have to abandon hit points entirely, but adding wounds, fatigue, shock, or thresholds can breathe life into your encounters. Suddenly, damage isn't invisible anymore. It's personal. It's part of the story. So here's my challenge. In your next game, describe what every hit looks like. Even if you're just using standard hit points, paint the picture. Make the players feel the cut, the bruise, the exhaustion. And if you already use an alternative to hit points, I want to hear about it. Drop your favorite system or your best scar story in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.